Hello and welcome to Move the Line, presented by 4for4 Bets. I'm Ryan Noonan, joined here by Connor Allen, continuing on our journey of divisional previews. Almost at the finish line, Connor. We are wrapping up AFC West today. We have the AFC East coming up next week, and man, props coming soon. We're almost at the finish line, buddy. What's going on?
Yeah, it's feeling very real. I mean, what are we, like 15 days out from the season, 14 days, which is absolutely insane. The summer flew by. Shows like props are coming out. We got some week one lines that we talked about in our Discord on Underdog. There were four just like absolute miserable lines that I think will be like 10 to 15 yards off by the time they release it sports books. But we launched kind of like a pick'em product that's available in our betting package and on Dub Club. So gonna be focused more on just blasting some stale lines, see what we can get down, and make some money, because there is a lot of money to be made if you're paying any attention to those lines. And thankfully we're able to hire Jake, hashtag intern Jake, to help out there and blast out some plays for you guys.
Yeah, trying to make sure we diversify the way that we attack the markets. I've touched on this in some of my written pieces on the site over the last couple of weeks. Is like, look, this is year 7 for us doing this. We've been going at the prop market pretty hard for a while, and it just has changed quite a bit. And we have to evolve in ways where we continue to find edges and take advantage of that and make money for ourselves, make money for subscribers. And we are so focused on some other stuff, it's been hard to kind of get into the pick'em game. So having intern Jake on, you're going a little bit more aggressive at some of the underdog prize picks, Vivid, whatever's out there in terms of what you're doing in that market. Like, there's people have access to that. And then where betting is not, unfortunately, legal everywhere yet. So we're trying to, again, diversify the way we go about it. Same thing with that's why I do tackles now. We have a guy that's doing interception props, and we're trying to get all sorts of different ways that we can attack maybe some of these softer markets or softer providers in terms of finding ways that we can gain an edge. So we appreciate anyone hanging out with us currently. You can find the show on our 4for4 Bets YouTube channel. Subscribe, thumbs up, all those things help us a ton. You can also find the Move the Line podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Go ahead and do that as well. Again, we'll ramp up here soon, and we'll have 2 a week when we get into props here. That's going to start next week. We'll be back with Prop Drop on Fridays with Connor, myself, and John Hyslop, like we had last year. I had a lot of fun doing that. It was a popular show. You guys seem to really enjoy that one. And Slop obviously brings a unique blend. And, we get a little bit off the wall there. We get into some of the alts. We get into some of the same game parlays. The show takes on a life of its own. I cannot wait to get back on the wagon there.
Always. I mean, literally it's, I think we started it as like a release show, a couple of shows. And then we just spent the last 20, 30 minutes, usually galaxy branding different parlays and alts. And we hit a bunch. I mean, I had a 50-1 we hit a couple non-correlated parlays.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just talking about parlays to talk about it. We were making some money.
I mean, thinking back to championship weekend, the Ravens Chiefs game, it was Nelson Aguilar, uncorrelated parlay mean my weekend. He was I think under receptions, over on yards, and he caught like a 30 yards, down the seam, late in the game and something like that.
Yep.
That was it. We're cooking with gas for the whole weekend because it's 37-1 or something like that came home. So yeah, we were thinking through them. So yeah, they were definitely galaxy brain, but there were some thoughts behind it. So excited to bring that one back for folks next week, and then all season long with Hyslop too. And again, there are lots of different ways to take advantage of all the things that we do at 4for4. The betting subscription is the best way to do that. That gets you access to all the things that we do. So if you still play season long, or you're looking to play high stakes or best ball or anything like that, you still do that and you want to bet, the betting sub is what you need. We have an insane deal for you to take advantage of right now. It is available for limited time. It is through our friends over at Rebet. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see this. If you're listening in podcast form, there'll be some information in the show notes. But you download Rebet. It is a sweepstakes app. I love how these providers find different loopholes to no offense to Rebet, whatever, Underdog is DFS. It's okay. It's yeah, is it? And then Rebet the same, at sweepstakes, whatever. You can bet on a multitude of sports, and we partner with them through our subscription here. You can sign up, download the app, use promo code 4for4bet. That is number 4, FOR, number 4, BET. And you will get just with $10 through rebet, you will get a free 2 months of the betting subscription at 4for4. 2 months of betting 4for4 is like $120. Great deal. No loopholes. You don't have to pay anything else. It is just that within 48 hours or so, you'll get an activation email. It's available in 46 states. Unfortunately, like Michigan, Nevada, Montana, and Idaho are doing their own thing. But again, like you can get it for just $10. And again, 2 months for you to get in early in the season. I think we have some of the biggest edges early in the season too. We've been grinding this stuff really hard. We're ready to take advantage of the book. So it's a great time to jump in. Again, by the time that expires, to be honest, like we'll have some other deals and ways for you to get in for pretty cheap to extend your subscription too. So take advantage of the rebet deal. Again, download the app, promo code 4for4bet, and then jump in with us for a couple of months. If you just want like our DFS package or pro, or there's other ways you can get the full season the same way too. We head over to the site and find what those promo codes, but get the betting sum, guys, get access to everything. And you're watching a betting show, so you probably have some interest in betting. All right, let's jump in here. We are going to tackle the AFC West today, Connor. Obviously, we are dealing with the defending Super Bowl champs and 3 other very interesting squads. Cannot wait to break those down because they're definitely unique. Let's jump into it. From a scheduling standpoint, the AFC West is playing the AFC North and the NFC South. It's a little bit on the easier side there on the South. We'll start with the Chiefs. They are obviously your defending Super Bowl champs. Again, 6-1 to win the Super Bowl on FanDuel, and is the best price, plus 350 also on FanDuel for them to win the AFC. They are minus 230 to win this division. Their win total is set at 11.5. It's a pretty good football team. It's kind of easy to forget, and I kind of did, to be honest. But we had a nice playoff run. They knocked off the Bills, who were really hot at the time, the Ravens, who everyone thought were maybe the best team in the league, and if they weren't, the 49ers certainly were. Running off those 3 wins in a row on the road or in a neutral field situation to win the Super Bowl, it's Mahomes and Andy Reid. Like they were pretty mediocre for a large chunk of the season. Like they just got teed up by the Raiders on Christmas Day. Like that was a late season game. Like they were like 9-6 after that. Like they were definitely making the playoffs because the division was so poor. But it was like, again, it's not fair to the Chiefs because they get held up against the standard of previous Chiefs seasons, previous Mahomes, Andy Reid seasons. And it definitely felt like a disappointing, group comparatively, even though it felt like maybe a little bit of a rebuilding year, but rebuilding year turns into a Super Bowl, Connor. Let's talk about the Chiefs.
Yeah, it's a really interesting team because I think that they're better offensively and slightly worse defensively this year, but significantly better offensively because they drafted Xavier Worthy, traded up to get him, and then they signed Marquise Brown, who's dealing with a bit of an injury. I think that he'll probably be, I would say, worked back in slowly early in the season, maybe weeks 1 through 3, 4, just kind of as like running some wind sprints on the outside, and then mid-season, late season, I could see him being used a ton, kind of in high leverage situations. And then obviously the Rashee Rice suspension. At this point, I don't think either you or I is expecting a suspension for this year. I think that we're probably going to see that next year. And then, so they're going to have like a full complement of weapons for Patrick Mahomes behind our 6th ranked offensive line. Like, I mean, it's really interesting because they didn't really have the ability to stretch the field and open it up for Rashee Rice, who had like a super low ADOT, and then Travis Kelce, who I think is aging, pretty heavily here and is obviously good over the middle and like when they need him, but I don't know if he can shoulder a full workload for an entire season at this point. So, but now with those guys, Worthy and Hollywood Brown opening up the field for Rice, like it just makes it so much easier for them to have space. And so I think this offense is going to be back to elite. Last year, they were kind of like fringe top 10 in like EPA success rate, kind of that metric. But like this year, I'm thinking that they're going to roll right back into top 5. At least that's my expectation for the offense.
Kind of agree. I mean, a little bit of a turnover along the offensive line, but not really. Like Wanye Morris had to step in for Donovan Smith late last year anyway. He did try to send Max Crosby straight to the Hall of Fame on Christmas. He allowed 10 pressures in that game, which is pretty wild. But like on the season, Morris actually had a better PFF grade than Smith. So it's probably a pretty neutral situation along the offensive line. The interior of the offensive line is probably the best in football. And they also have, again, another one of like the things that Mahomes does so well is he doesn't take sacks. Like his pressure to sack rate is continuously top 5 in the league every year. So that helps a ton. I'm with you on all the offensive weapons. I'm in agreement with Kelsey too. We were talking last night. We're in a high stakes FFPC draft, and we're talking about zacking the Chiefs and making some selections there. We were talking about Kelsey, and like I just think they want to get him to the end of the season. Like they know, again, they're minus 230 to win this division. I don't think there's a real challenger in this division to knock off the Chiefs. Right? They're really trying to think about where they are in the pecking order of the rest of the upper echelon of the NFL. I think we still see a good Travis Kelsey season. I think like from a output standpoint, still think he's a massive piece in the red zone. I think he's still, in high leverage situations, big games, really impactful. You probably see a continued dip in just overall targets, receptions, yards, and stuff like that. Still obviously a very good player, but that's why some of the other supporting stuff helps. So I'm with you on the Rashee Rice thing too. I feel like if something was going to happen there, it would have already happened. It feels like a weird thing to do 14 days out. So that feels like an opportunity for them to continue on with him. And that helps with obviously with Hollywood Brown nicked up too. And yeah, just the way that those three receivers interact with each other and the way that they win, I think is really nice too and sets up well. So if he was able to do that with like Mahomes can do what he did with like 90% Justin Watson out there and like MVS and like just the number of drops for the Chiefs last year too, just kind of off the charts. So it's hard not to be bullish on another step forward for the offense.
Yeah, I mean, the offense is exciting. I think on defensively though, I mean, I don't know if maybe my expectations were off. I kind of thought they were good, not great defense. They finished the season 3rd in EPA per dropback, despite playing against really tough teams. And they were not a great run defense necessarily, but everything else, I mean, 4th in success rate, like they were just an awesome unit overall. And so, but now they lost L'Jarius Sneed, which I think could matter in some senses. Like, I don't think their secondary is going to necessarily be elite. They did have Chamari Connor played well when given the opportunity. Had 145.
It's a good pull, Connor. It's a good pull.
145 snaps in the slot, baby. So I mean, he could be kind of like a new slot corner, I guess. And like, so I don't know. I mean, you obviously are again a lot deeper in the defensive side than I am. My expectation is that they're probably more like a fringe top 10 unit instead of like a fringe top 5 unit. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on them.
I think that's fair. I think Spags is awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that helps. So like Sneed's really good. That's a loss for them, but they in the 2022 draft they like triple tapped corner, and like Trent McDuffie's was the top there and has been awesome, but like Josh Williams and Jalen Watson have been also really good in limited snaps. So like yes, they lost Sneed, but there's continuity defensively. Like they're not bringing in anyone from the outside into the starter group this year. So like it's all guys that were on the roster last year that played significant snaps last year. So whether it's Chamari Connor, who I like a lot, who they kind of have in like a hybrid slot, like safety role. Justin Reed's awesome. They lost Brian Cook late in the year, but like he'll be back. Like they have depth. Like I really like Jalen Hicks, who they took in this year's draft at safety. So there's like a ton of depth in the back half. And I think McDuffie's a dog. I think he could probably still stay in the slot and allow, Williams and Watson can handle the outside. And I think it's still going to be, like you said, a top 10 unit because partially too, like up front, they're really good. They're big. They have like guys that can rush the passer, but then also like hold their gap and defend the run. Like Chris Jones is like the king of that. He's one of the best players in the league still. It was awesome last year. And when he's on the field, they're just, I still think there's no way they're not a top 10 defense. So again, top 10 D, and you gave Mahomes more options and explosive plays. Like they just didn't have a lot of explosives last year too. That was part of the problem. And the schedule is pretty soft. Like they're kind of on the right side of the rest for a handful of chunks of games here, especially in the early to mid part of the season, right around their bye. So just not a lot of holes to poke in the Chiefs, even if you wanted to. Because again, it's Holmes and Reed. Like it's lazy, but it's kind of enough to handicap the team. So yeah, they win the division for sure. I can't advise anyone to lay minus 230, but I can't see a situation where they don't win.
Yeah, I mean, divisional parlay, if you're putting one of those together, I'm going to build another one here probably in the next week or so as we kind of wrap this up.
Nice.
I mean, they're, in my mind, very clearly like just a top option. They do have some weird, like interesting in their schedule. Like they play a lot of bad teams, but they also play a lot of like really good teams, which again, doesn't really matter for them because they are a very good team. But I mean, again, it's like Ravens, Bengals, Falcons, who knows, what consider them, but they have to play like the Niners, the Bills, the Browns, the Texans. Like they have some good teams that are like fringe playoff teams. But then they also get like, the Raiders twice, the Broncos twice, the Panthers. Like they have bad teams that they face this year. So like they have obviously shoe-ins, then even the middle tier teams that they play, they'll probably beat. And then the top teams are like coin flip leaning towards them essentially a lot of times. So yeah, I don't know if I'm necessarily like running to bet the over, but would probably lean that way. And I don't know. I mean, do you have a way to play the Chiefs this year?
I would lean over on the wins. I think I would lean over on the wins. It's not like a smash because it's such a high threshold to get to, to go 12-5, even with a good team. Cause you did, lay out like their unique three is tough. They play Houston and they go at Buffalo, at San Francisco. So those are the three unique for the Chiefs compared to their division foes. So the other teams play everyone else as well. So yeah. And getting those back end games against the Raiders. They lost to the Raiders and the Broncos last year, to be honest, which is wild to think of, but it did happen. So, I would lean over. But again, this is just like the way to play the Chiefs. Probably, you can make a case, obviously, for other teams. I think they go to the Super Bowl again. Man, I'd be very surprised if they don't. I don't know that I want to jump on a preseason plus 350, but it's just like I think unless we have a Mahomes injury or Andy Reid has like a coronary, like we're probably hitting. I'd be very surprised if the Chiefs aren't in the AFC Championship game, I guess I would say. So no specific way to bet that, but just there might be some opportunities in the season to maybe grab better prices.
Yep, for sure.
All right, next is the Chargers. Obviously a fascinating club here. They are 45-1 to win the Super Bowl on DraftKings. I also have the best prices for pretty much everything else. 22 to win the AFC, plus 360 to win the West. And they have an 8.5 win total. It's juiced to the over. Flat nines available on Caesars for you. Obviously a massive cultural change here. Jim Harbaugh stuff is undeniable. He has won at every level. He's kind of intoxicating as a personality. Like you want to watch the press conferences. Like he's just kind of a unique character, but I think there is something to be said for those types of like what they bring into a locker room and the atmosphere that they create. And I think you're hearing that coming out of the Chargers camp. Those guys are really loving it. The roster itself isn't great in a lot of spots, but I think they're like, I understand why people are bullish long-term on the Chargers. I think with the way they went about this draft, the way they're going about things roster construction wise, they do seem like they're building foundationally from the ground up. And I think in a couple of years, we're going to be in a spot where the Chargers are really interesting if they can hit on some of their draft picks and turn some of these, talents into, long-term guys that can get into second contracts. So, yeah, I know you're a little bit bullish on them. At least you have been in earlier shows. Maybe your process here doing a little bit more work has tempered that, but I'd love to hear what you think on the Chargers.
Yeah, I've been wavering a little bit, especially with Justin Herbert's new like plantar fasciitis injury. Like, I don't know. I mean, the roster just like isn't all that good. Like kind of like you mentioned. But I like the coaching is really tough to ignore. So like, Harbaugh in his 4 seasons as a Niners head coach went 13-3, 11-4, 12-4, and then 8-8 was his final season. The team that he inherited prior to going 13-3 was 6-10. They both had Alex Smith in quarterback. So it's not like he just got a new quarterback. I mean, obviously there's some other changes as well, but like, I mean, he turned it around very quickly. And there's always been talent, some talent on the Chargers. Defensively, their D-line, I think, is pretty strong. Bosa, Mack, I don't know how to pronounce it. The guy with T, Alohi Bowman and Asante Samuel are solid. Like, they're just not very deep. It seems like they have a little bit of star power and then some, pieces that are okay supporting pieces, but then just like it's pretty bad, other sections of their defense. So I think that could be a problem. And then offensively, like their offensive line is great. So I think that they'll be able to run the ball with whoever's back there. It doesn't matter if it's Gus, J.K. Dobbins, whatever. Like, doesn't matter. I think they'll all have success. I worry a little bit about the passing game with Herbert dealing with the issue. Like, that's kind of why I've like soured on them a little bit. Like, if he was fully healthy, I think you can make a case that he is good enough player to like string things together when they need to throw, when they're not running the ball successfully. If he's injured, if he's not as mobile, like if it's kind of bothering him, which, basically reports are that like it could bother him like for a while. Like, we just have no idea like if he's going to be full go, won't bother him at all, or like he'll be kind of, hobbled for the entire season, so that's pretty tough for me to pack my bags in that boat.
Sure.
And so for me, it's kind of just like a stay away, like maybe play him against, some teams that I think they'll have a significant advantage against. I still week one think that them, -3 against the Raiders is fine because I'm a little bit lower on the Raiders, but I'm not as excited about it as I was when I think we did like our week one preview show, like, I don't know, 2 months ago at this point.
From what I've heard from people that have connections there, it was completely precautionary. Like, and again, I think that goes back to the team taking like the longest view in the room, and like they know Herbert's their guy, and ideally for the next decade or so. So like, let's not do anything to jeopardize Herbert in our first year in the middle of August.
Hopefully.
So if that's the case, yeah, right. That's because otherwise, multiple Easton stick starts last year is not a great show. So, and if that's the case, then that's it should help a little bit. But yeah, I mean, we're relying a lot on projection in terms of coaching staff here, right? Because like you laid out some of the stuff, like it's impossible to argue what Harbaugh's been able to do, and he doesn't have a system per se, right? And we have Greg Roman as the offensive coordinator, and Greg Roman for some has been like a punching bag, and like it's a little boring and like mundane. But Greg Roman was also involved in like two of the most dynamic offenses we've seen in the last decade. Like the Colin Kaepernick offense was Greg Roman under Jim Harbaugh, and early Lamar Jackson in Baltimore was Greg Roman. And like, so there's something to be said for what he's been able to do there. Obviously Harbaugh is heavily involved in that as well. And I think we both really like this when there's not like a Harbaugh system, right? Like it's adaptable to the talent. And I think that's a really smart way to approach coaching, is just look at what you have and let's figure it out. And what they have is an awesome offensive line. So I do think they're going to maul people. There's a lot of like Steeler vibes here when we did the Steelers a little bit ago. Like they can be really annoying to play and like muck it up with some teams and really just kind of dominate up front and control tempo and pace and keep the other team on the sideline because they're going to be able to dictate things up front. So it's hard to like look at the pass catching core and be like, woo, this is super exciting, but that's like a bunch of wide receiver 2.5s or 3s. They're all NFL players, like maybe not Quentin Johnson. I think guy seems to still be super struggling, but like, I don't know, Josh Palmer, McConkey, DJ Chark, they're all okay. They're all serviceable. Again, there's no like massive difference maker there. Again, unless there's someone that emerges, unless something we see more than we thought from McConkey or Palmer or something like that. But again, I think with Dobbins a year removed from the Achilles and Gus Bus, like I think they have, there's some young talent, some guys like some of the rookies and some stuff they've done there too. So I'll be interested to see what they do there. I think that's obviously how they're going to have to play and win, because they also cannot stop the run on the other side. Like they have good edge talent, and you laid that out too. But interior of the line is not great. But Jesse Minter is like part of the Mike McDonald tree, right? He comes over from his time with Harbaugh in Michigan. Those Michigan defenses were awesome. Minter's been on that staff even with McDonald there, and then he was at DC last year when McDonald was in Baltimore. And like Mike McDonald's like the hand of God at this point in terms of what they can do defensively. Like that tree for a young guy is starting to get pretty big and interesting. So maybe there's something that Minter can do there, because like I don't love the perimeter corners. I don't love the defensive line. Like those are not good ways to build winning playoff teams. So they're interesting. I'm kind of with you. Like I lean under, but like I'm right there. Like I think they're winning 7 to 9 games. Right? Like there's no strong takes.
Yeah, I think that's very, very fair, especially in that. I think, well, you talked about like comparing the Steelers. I think that's an interesting comparison. But imagine, like, I think their defense is a little worse than the Steelers. But imagine the Steelers with like Justin Herbert at quarterback. Like the Steelers, Justin Herbert quarterback is like probably contending for the division or like at least close. So again, it's that kind of mindset and mentality that I think that we are struggling to comprehend in a sense, because we've just seen Justin Herbert sling the ball for like every year and like just bombs away to Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, and always playing like these fast-paced kind of like, fun offenses. And now I think he has a little bit more stable coaching systematic stuff around him that like I expect him to be like uber efficient, for the most part in terms of like completion rate and things like that. But I don't expect him to have a ton of volume. Like I just think it's going to be like run, third down pass on 3rd and 5. And like he'll complete it basically every time because he's an awesome quarterback. So I don't know. I'm interested. I guess I'm just like, interested. I don't really know what it's going to look like fully. We have a good idea, but I don't know. I mean, Greg Roman also has never had a quarterback. I mean, those times are also like running quarterbacks. Like Justin Herbert doesn't really run, like that's kind of the other aspect too.
He can though, right? He's mobile. He doesn't necessarily run though. So yeah,
Yeah.
it'll
I mean, he's
be
not ripping like
interesting to see.
RPO, like, he's not keeping it on an RPO. You know what I mean? Like they can do RPOs, but like he's not keeping it and running, 20 yards upfield with it.
They're gonna do it. They're gonna do a ton of RPO, I think.
You
So I'll
think
be
that he's
interested
going
to
to keep
see.
it and like run a bunch? You think he's going to like, I mean, if you think that's a legit angle, like his props are going to be like 8, 9, 10 yards in the first like 2 weeks of the season.
But we're also dealing with the unknown of how actually injured is his foot, right? So like,
You're right.
but yeah, there could be some upside there for sure. But I think they're going to do a lot of RPO looks. So
This is going to be fun.
it's going to be interesting. And the schedule, that's the bull case. The schedule is the second easiest in the league. It starts off soft too, like you mentioned, Raiders, and then they're on the road in Carolina and Pittsburgh. So those are like winnable games, theoretically. The back end of the schedule, I mean, look, Tampa Bay, Denver, New England, and the Raiders to finish the season. Like when the Harbaugh machine has been like greased a little bit more too, right? Like it's been ingrained in them. They definitely have an identity at that point in the season. Like, I don't know. It's interesting. That's the bull case for them too, is that the schedule is definitely one of the easiest in the league and definitely easier than the rest of the division. So they're going to be a fascinating watch.
They have that 1 4-game stretch. Bengals, Ravens, Falcons, Chiefs it's not kind. That's some L's right there. But yeah, the 4 games end the season. We might be looking at this team at the end of the year and being like, oh wow, like this 4-game sample, like they were 4-0 at the end of the year, and they finished with like 8 or 9 wins basically just because of that stretch of games. Like I think that's very possible as well, and maybe we have a different outlook on this team heading into next season.
Yeah, I mean that team's going to New England in Week 17. Oh, the LA team going to New England in Week 17. It's like they're built like an outdoor team. Like they're going to want to just run the football anyway. So like it doesn't even matter. So they're going to be fascinating. I think they're going to be interesting, and it's obviously a team that probably would want to buy some stock in for the future. Obviously with Harbaugh attached to it. All right, next the Raiders. They are 100-1 to win the Super Bowl, pretty readily available across all books. 60-1 to win the AFC on DraftKings and FanDuel. You can get them at 10-1 to win the division on Caesars. They have a 6.5 win total. That's juiced to the over. Obviously, Antonio Pierce parlayed a solid late season showing into a full-time gig. Was overwhelmingly backed by the players, which I think is a great thing to see. A couple of big division wins help that, obviously, which he had. They destroyed the Chargers and won in Kansas City on Christmas Day. We had Aiden O'Connell take over for Jimmy Garoppolo when we had the coaching change as well. And then they brought in Gardner Minshew to compete in the offseason, and Minshew has now won that job. Interesting to hear your thoughts on the Raiders. I think I know what your thoughts are, but I'll give you the floor here to get started.
Yeah, you got Nick in the chat here. If I think this is who I think it is, with Nick, one of our subs who loves the Raiders. Unfortunately, I'm not in on the Raiders this year. We played under 7 wins like early in the season. That was like even money. Now we're looking at under 6.5 wins is plus money. Gardner Minshew's looked good throughout his career periodically. He has not looked good in the preseason. Now was announced as the starter. I think the Antonio Pierce stuff was really tough. I mean, he went 5-4. They beat the Giants, the Chargers, and the Brandon Staley like end of the game. Like the Chiefs in the game, that was like the biggest 3-week net rest disadvantage. And then the Broncos. So it's like in the Jets. I mean, but the Jets again, like they were like just DOA, with like quarterback play. So it's like they beat up on a lot of teams that I don't really think were all that good, or like we're at a serious disadvantage or something. And then we look at this defense here. I think the defensive line is pretty nasty, with Christian Wilkins, with Max Crosby. It's just going to be a matter of like their secondary is not very good. So it's like kind of that balance of how that works out. But I really worry most about this offense here. Offensive line is like fringe bottom 10. Gardner Minshew's a quarterback. Luke Getsy, I think, is just like one of the worst coordinators ever. I say it every single show I go on. Like it just cannot be understated how bad Luke Getsy is an offensive coordinator. If we had like a producer doing this whole thing, I'd have like the clips of the JT Sullivan video of him being like, why are there 2 guys stacked on top of each other? Like, why are these routes like on, 3rd down and 10 going 3 yards? Like, what is going on here? Obviously Justin Fields was a problem too, but like just a complete and utter disaster top to bottom. The fact that he has a job is criminal. And so I'm worried about this team just like falling apart. Like Devontae Adams, there was already trade rumors about him leaving the team. Brock Bowers is already injured. He hasn't even I mean, these week 1 status, I think they said is good, but like they didn't seem confident enough where I'm like, oh, okay, this could be actually be something serious. So all these weapons are already getting banged up, and that's kind of the bull case for the offense is like, oh, like they can get the ball to Devontae, get the ball to Bowers and Jacoby Myers. But I don't know. I'm really concerned about this team. And so the schedule, I mean, they're favored in 2 games this year, and that's against the Panthers and the Broncos at home. I mean, and that's it. Like it's an uphill battle every game for this Raiders team to be good. So I don't know. I'm really interested to see how it goes. Like I think if it does happen, it's like the defensive line like carries this team. Gardner Minshew is just slinging the entire game, and the offensive line ends up being like way better than we think. Like that's what it would take for them to, I think, be like a 7-8 win team this year. But again, I think the floor is so low. I've played worst team in the league at like 15-1 or whatever. And I think again, like, Devontae Adams gets traded, it's over. Like it's Jover for this Raiders team. I mean, it's like, talking about 2-3 wins probably.
I think all of your reasoning is sound for sure. I think the defensive line is so damn good that they're going to be super duper annoying, and they're going to win some games that they probably shouldn't, because they're just going to wreak havoc. Like Christian Wilkins is a massive difference maker. If you look at like pass rush grade and some of pass rush win rate and stuff like that, Malcolm Kuntz led the Raiders last year. Like people don't even know who that guy is, and he's really good. And he's playing the opposite side of Max Crosby. If they get anything out of Tyree Wilson, who they're mixing him like a little bit on the inside as well, like they all of a sudden have like legit depth up front. Like John Jenkins is fine. Like they think they can stop the run and they can get pressure on the quarterback, but the rest of it is not great. The cornerback room isn't very good. The safety group is kind of underwhelming. They're just going to have to win some games where they're on the right side of like sack rates and turnover variance, some like strip sixes. They create pressure that converts into like a pick six or something like that, and I think they'll have a couple of those on the schedule.
Yep.
So if they don't trade Devontae Adams, I think they could be okay if Bowers is okay. Like Adams, Bowers, and Jacoby Myers, a decent
That's
3,
good.
right? It's okay.
Yeah.
Like I think he's like Minshew has his flaws for sure, and I think moving where maybe I want to be cautious too, because I love Shane Steichen so much, and he made Minshew okay last year. This is about as big of a downgrade, like you said, going from Steichen to Getsy as far as an offensive play caller and coordinator, and knowing that like Pearson, who he is and what his background is, isn't really going to have his hand in that so much. Like he's really like Getsy really has the keys to this, which is why there is a floor outcome, like you said, where I'd be surprised if they're the worst team in the league, but like there's a pretty dramatic floor outcome. The offensive line mixed too. I think it's probably one of the bottom of the league, but they have some good players if they can get some development and some step. I mean, Colton Miller's really, really good. That helps. Jackson Powers Johnson slides in next to him. Like they could have a really good left side of the line. But yeah, I mean, it's not a playoff team. I'm kind of like, I think their win total is fine. I would lean under. I think 7 under was definitely the right play. But I think they could be in that like 6-7 win total mix, and I would not be surprised because I think, up front, they're going to be that disruptive, and that matters. Like winning that battle in the trenches against some of these clubs is going to be enough to get, to win some football games. So and keep them competitive. And if Minshew, look, he's not good for O'Connell. Like he was not great last year. Think about that Chiefs game. They didn't get a first down in the last 3 quarters of the game, and they won in Kansas City 20-14 without a first down for 3 quarters. So like definitely on the luck side, you laid it out too. There was just some good vibes going on there. They lost a 3-0 game somehow, which is tough to do. But yeah, the upside isn't really here other than just a MVP type season from guys along the defensive line.
Yeah, and then we got Nick chiming in, 2-3 wins, clipping this for when we go 10-7. If the Raiders win 10 games, you get a free 4-4 subscription for a year. I will make sure to that. That'll be my bet. I'll probably be paying the sub out of my own pocket, but it's fine. My bags are packed on the under on 7 wins. I also added any opinion on Zamir White, 4.5 touchdowns. Devontae likes Getsy, which is interesting. Yeah, the 4.5 touchdowns I actually don't mind. I took an under on Zamir White at like 800 something rushing yards, but I mean, he can score like 3 touchdowns in a single game. You know what I mean? Like if they get the right matchup, like I think that like probably lean over actually, to be honest on that. And a lot of my reasoning on Zamir's under on like the rushing yards was, I don't think the team's gonna be playing a ton of positive game scripts, offensive line concerns. Like I think that if they are gonna have success offensively, it'll probably be passing the ball. And then Alexander Madison might play some roles at backup, and then Amir Abdullah and Dylan Lobb have also been playing a little bit more in pass catching roles. So like, and not to mention, I mean, Zamir White hasn't had more than 167 carries since his sophomore year of high school in a single season. So like, I mean, I don't know, projecting him to be a workhorse and like sustaining the whole season of 800 yards is pretty tough. I think there's a lot of outs for an under, but 4.5 touchdowns, like, I mean, that number's really low. I would have set that like 5.5 or 6.5, to be honest.
Yeah. I don't hate that. I think he'd be okay, but yeah, there's no precedent for him being the dude, for a sustained amount of time. So, again, another team that's just going to be interesting week in and week out matchup wise, depending on who they're playing. So, all right, bringing up the rear. This is Connor's squad. Sorry to do that to you. Broncos 301 to win the Super Bowl. DraftKings 150 to win the AFC. 20-1 to win the West. Their win total is 5.5, slightly juiced over. I think the Sean Payton, Russell Wilson experience went about as expected. I think Wilson was better than 2022, but he wasn't good. The defense bottomed out really in week 3. They lose 70-20, which is absolutely insane. Then they run hotter than the sun for the stretch in the middle of the season with just some like insane turnover variance week in and week out. But like, if you look at it, they knocked off Green Bay, Kansas City, and Buffalo in consecutive weeks, which is just bonkers to think about. Like in that stretch, they beat the Browns, another playoff team, like just kind of wild stuff. It is officially Bo Nix season though, turning the page. Sean Payton has his guy. They were going all in. They will lead you to believe no matter what that Bo Nix was their dude, and they are here. The Bo Nix discourse is pretty one-sided. Obviously a crap ton of collegiate starts. I think it's going to be interesting, Connor. I don't know. Like I'm interested to see Sean Payton as a guy who's been a talent maximizer at times pretty much throughout his career. I had some really good seasons with some Saints rosters at times. Nix is going to get the ball out quick. He's mobile. That helps protect an offensive line that's pretty terrible. Problem is the defense is still really, 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 really bad. Floor is yours on the Broncos.
So this is such an interesting thing for me because I think this team is like shaping up to be almost an exact replica of almost every Sean Payton team for a long time, because his defense, I mean, they forced 14 fumbles in that 5-week stretch, by the way, which is outrageous. I mean, 14. I don't think most teams force 14 in like an entire
season. And they recovered most
of
them, right? Like I believe, right. I don't know what the numbers are, but that was insane.
They did. And so like and still, despite all that, 25th in EPA, 27th in passing EPA, which, again, factors in like a lot of these things, and 24th in success rate. They have Patrick Surtain, who didn't even play all that well last year, according to PFF. They don't have a single player on their entire defensive roster that has higher than a 76 PFF grade last year, including Surtain. Not a single one. And again, for those who aren't familiar with PFF grades, it's out of 100. The best players usually get like 92, 93. Good players are like 80 plus. Average players are like 70 to 75 in that range, 75-ish. So this is basically saying they don't have anyone who played above average last season on their roster. And so, or on their defensive side of the ball, which is really tough. But what I'm most interested about is like, I've been going through this. Like, what if Bo Nix is fine? What if Sean Payton is like the perfect system? He can get the ball out quick, which is like, he's almost the anti-Russell Wilson in terms of like getting the ball into the middle of the field, getting the ball out quick into slants. Like, this team is going to be pretty fun to watch because their defense sucks and their offense might be okay. And if their offense is okay / is going to play fast, throw a lot, they have Jaleel McLaughlin. I think Cortland Sutton's fine. Tim Patrick listed the wide receiver too, but they have like, again, Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims in some capacity to play some field stretching roles. They added Josh Reynolds. Like, they're not a good team, but I don't like holistically from a sides and totals perspective, I will definitely not be betting the Broncos like against the spread, but totals wise, I think that they're going to be kind of underrated in some games because their defense is going to allow up a shitload of points and Bo Nix is going to throw a bunch. Like, I don't know. And if he's okay. Like he doesn't even need to be good, just okay. They're going to have some fun games to be in. And so it's kind of like one of my sleeper hot takes that I've adjusted for like fantasy betting. Like I'm like getting my mind towards here. Like maybe I get over my skis a little bit, but like, I don't know. I think that the market is going to be like way, way, way off of my perception of this based on like kind of what we're seeing right now.
Week 1 in Seattle could be a
Yeah.
sneaky over, right? Like,
Yep.
so we like, we were very bullish on Seattle. I like Seattle's defense. I like obviously all things Mike McDonald, but I think that might take a little bit of time. Like that'll probably be better later in the season than week 1. I think both those teams throw a little bit more than people think. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely some things here that could make them at least interesting, at least have a personality, at least have an identity. And, I think it's smart to give the kid the keys right away and just see what you can get out of him. At the end of the day, like it doesn't matter long-term that he's an older prospect. It just doesn't matter like in week 1 that he's a 24-year-old rookie. Like, you want him to be, you'd like his experience in this instance for the most part, right? Like how those guys have paid off out throughout history is not great, but Sean Payton is kind of a guy that has been able to get more out of less at times, and I think he could probably do it again here. So offensive line isn't great, but again, that's part of why the Knicks thing works a little bit. If he is going to be really quick with getting the ball out and has mobility and can run and can extend plays and do some stuff with his legs, they're going to be interesting to game plan for. I think running back room is
16th, by the way, for what it's worth, offensive line.
Okay, yeah. Middle of the pack is not bad. There's some good players there. Garrett Bowles, like they just have to give guys to stay healthy. They just have to stay healthy, so it could be fine. Defensively, though, they like you said, they're not good really anywhere, and they got worse basically on every free agent move that they did. Like they just took a step back in every move. Like I think Patrick Surtain is obviously better than he played last year. Jaquan McMillan is really, I think, going to be a really good slot player for them. So like those two, I think, are going to be interesting. That's kind of it. Like Alex Singleton is my guy. He is a tackling machine. He is a massive liability in coverage. Cody Barton's not very good either. So that's their starting linebacker duo. Edge rushers with Brennan Browning and Jonathan Cooper are not really electric. It's just not like there's nothing really there. They took a step back in the safety room, obviously, with losing Justin Simmons. Brennan Jones has been okay on a per snap basis, but he never stays on the field. He's already hurt. PJ Locke stepped in last year at times for guys. He's in his second year. He'll have to start. So they took a step back kind of everywhere. They did add John Franklin Myers, who's a nice, edge rusher who can help a little bit. Probably the best addition that they made in the offseason, but that's not great, right? That's not like a difference-making team. But I think we both agree that there is some feistiness here, kind of regardless of what happened last year and with the turnover variance. When they got turnovers, they won a bunch of games and that worked out. But like kind of a new team, and I'm definitely interested to see. I don't have any takes really on the Broncos. I was surprised and didn't really think of them as an 8-win team last year, that they won 8 games, but 5.5 is probably a little light. But I'm in no rush to bet over on the Broncos. But I don't know that I'm like dying to bang under 5.5 either.
No, because if you look at the schedule, right? Like on the outset, you're like, oh, they're only favored in 2 games. Like that kind of sucks. But then you look at the first half and second half. So in the first half, their average line, like the first 8 games, is just plus 2.5. I mean, they're bigger dog. They're like, again, 4.5 point dogs in week 1, 3, 3.5, 7 against the Jets. But it's like, Raiders, they play the Panthers, they play the Bucks, the Steelers, the Seahawks. Like these teams aren't that much better than them, that it's going to be like embarrassing, like, I don't know. They're going to be in some games. And then the second half season is brutal. I mean, their average second half line is 5.5 point dogs. Like they play a murderer's row down the stretch. But I mean, I don't know. Like, again, if maybe Bo Nix is a little bit of confidence, could be something for us to adjust to also midseason. If we see a good Broncos team that's gotten a lot of market respect, that is probably not that good. They were just beating up on some other shitty teams. So I don't know. I just color me interested, and I'm probably going to try and take advantage of like maybe some alts in the prop market, maybe some alt overs and totals market, again, early in the season, because the market has this team like down in the shitter. I mean, 5.5 wins, the projected point total is super low. Like the baseline expectation for this team is outrageously low. And I understand why, just because of all the moving pieces, but based on what we've seen and like kind of everything coming together, like defensively being bad and the offense maybe being okay. Like, I mean, it could just be like wildly wrong. So I'm here for it.
Yeah, no, that's the right way to attack it. I think we're going to have some overs. It could be an over team for sure because there's just not a lot of encouraging things defensively. I just don't see that. I mean, Levi Wallace was really bad last year for Pittsburgh, and he's stepping into starter snaps and needs to be like a key piece of what they're doing here. That's not a great place to be at this point in his career. And you could also, this could be a team too where we look for some like explosive plays again. That's what we did last year. You can find explosives against this team. Like Wallace is like a big body corner, is a little slow. The safety group's not great. Like we could have some explosives against this team too. So maybe, longest pass, longest reception stuff against the Broncos early. So yeah, I think the back end is interesting. Like all three of these teams are kind of, I think, going to be interesting to watch at least. I don't like there could be a dumpster fire. Like you can have scenarios where both the Raiders and Broncos bottom out. It could be really, really ugly, but there's also cases for them to be very difficult week in and week out from a game planning standpoint where they could be a little bit feisty and there could be some opportunities. Like you said, early is the way to attack them because the back end is rough. So no way that anyone other than the Chiefs win this division, right?
Honestly, if Patrick Mahomes got injured, I think the Chiefs would still win the division.
I agree. Yeah,
that's. I agree. I don't know. I don't think I could say that about any other team in the league, like with their division. Maybe no. I don't even think I don't know if the 49ers would, to be honest, either. Maybe they'd come close, but
no. I mean, it's a better division for sure. Yeah. There's at least contenders closer to the top there for sure. I think so. Yeah, I agree. I think that says enough. Like if they lose Mahomes, even they're not winning the Super Bowl anymore, but they could probably still win the division. So yeah, Chiefs. And I don't have any hot takes in this. Like I don't really have any great ways to attack the division, to be honest, from a betting standpoint, like in the futures market, because I think there's a lot of volatility in the outcomes of the three other teams. I think we've laid out some other good in-season ways to kind of go about it.
Is there maybe I'm getting a little crazy here, like a Broncos second place or like, I don't know, like, something like that. Like, I feel like that would be kind of fun,
Yeah.
And then that would take like probably 8-9 wins. But again, I don't think that's like that crazy. It would just require the defense to like not be the exact worst team in the league. Let's hear NFC. They don't even have it up.
6-1.
They do. Yeah. 6-1. Chiefs, Broncos.
Yeah, or just 6-1 for second place. I don't have the exact, but just let me see. Yeah, top two. We have it somewhere here, right?
Yeah, plus 550 DraftKings. Or
yeah.
Oh, they do have an exact order here on DraftKings of all four. This is kind of fun. Getting off the rails here a little bit, but Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers, Raiders, 9-1. I kind of wanted more than that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I kind of thought we'd get like 15 or 20-1. That's kind of lame. DraftKings is nerfing all the odds because these, greedy fucks, in Illinois and these states are just asking for higher tax rates and now they're passing on to the customer. This is capitalism. This is America. This is just like a very real life example of it hitting the sports betting industry that I don't think that people were ready for. So I don't know. It's coming. It kind of is what it is, right?
Interested to see how it continues to come because it's coming. Yeah, we're going to continue to find ways that we don't realize that we're paying for all those things this year for sure. So
yeah.
All right, buddy. Good stuff as always. Anything else for the folks before we go? We went off the rails though. I think we gave them all the goods. We gave them some division exactas. That's enough.
Yeah, that'll do. No, last divisional episode next week, and then running back the slop show. We're hyped. It's gonna be awesome. Next week I think is just gonna be basically alts because we've already released everything. It's just basically gonna be alts and like fun parlays that we can do. DraftKings actually has a bunch of them that I think are kind of mispriced in a way. So I don't know. We'll see. They're probably all going to be like plus 150 by the time we talk about them next week anyways. But yeah, it should be a great time.
Should be fun. Yeah. AFC East to wrap it up. Last team in the divisional previews that we have to talk about is my Patriots. So you're saving them to the very, very end. Stuff in the Pats in the back end. So other three teams are going to be interesting. So looking forward to that one. Again, you can find the show Move the Line wherever you listen to podcasts. 4for4 Bets YouTube channel. Subscribe there. You'll get all of our betting shows all season. And again, check out that deal from Rebet, guys. $10 on Rebet. Promo code 4for4Bet. and you get a betting subscription for 2 months. $120 value for $10. Ride with us early in the season, get a sense of what that looks like. Again, gets access to everything at 4for4. And then, in season, we'll definitely have some other discounted ways for you to join us. So take advantage, check that out. Download Rebet and use that promo code. So appreciate you as always. We'll be back next week to do the AFC East. So for Connor, I'm Ryan. See y'all next time. Thanks, everyone.